I was heading to my son and daughter-in-law's house with my husband, John. Something seemed off about them ever since my grandchild got a bruise on their face from housework. As we approached the house, I noticed Amy sitting down on the roof of the second floor.
Isn't that Amy? Hey, what are you doing? Come down here.
But Amy didn't budge. Goodness, what are they up to? Nancy, keep an eye on Amy for me, I'll go talk to them. John went to press the intercom button. Then, Amy called out from the roof. No, I can't. Dad told me to stay like this. What? Why?
Because being near the sun makes your face beautiful,
Amy said to me with a big smile. But I couldn't understand what she was saying. Perhaps something more serious than I imagined was happening. As I stood there, feeling scared, I noticed my son, Heath, looking at me with vacant eyes from the second-floor window. I'm Nancy. After graduating from college, I'm now working as a pharmacist at the local hospital. Although I'm used to the job, I often feel overwhelmed by the busyness. With age catching up, there are times when I feel physically exhausted and on the verge of giving up. Nevertheless, I persevere in my work, encouraged by the warm words and gratitude from patients. Moreover, I have something to look forward to. Glancing at the clock while working. It's 11:40. Lunch break is just around the corner. Just as I thought that, I heard a child's voice calling me from afar.
Grandma, it's time for lunch.
Turning towards the voice, my granddaughter, Amy, comes running towards me, flapping her short arms and legs. Behind her, my son's wife, Karen, rushes after her in a panic.
Hey! Amy! Grandma is still working, so be quiet.
But it seems like her mother's voice doesn't reach Amy's ears. She jumps onto the counter and starts bouncing around.
Hey, is work not over yet? I'm hungry, Grandma.
Amy, I'm sorry. It'll be over soon, so please wait a little longer. Oh no. Amy pouted discontentedly, puffing out her cheeks and tapping the counter with her small hands. Finally, Karen caught up and lifted Amy into her arms. Mom, sorry for interrupting your work. It's okay. There are no patients at the moment anyway.
Okay. Let's eat together.
Hey! Cut it out already. All right, Mom, see you later. Yeah. I'll come back during break time. With Amy in her arms, Karen left the area. As Amy looked at me with a hint of unease, she waved her finger. I waved back to her with a small smile, and Amy happily waved back. Once they were out of sight, I returned to work, but my mind was already on lunch break. My granddaughter, Amy, comes to the hospital for regular checkups. So, I looked forward to having lunch together with them in the hospital's restaurant. Karen is a reliable woman, and despite Amy's serious condition, she behaves cheerfully. As I pondered what to talk about, the lunch break chime rang, prompting me to head to the restaurant.
Grandma, over here, over here.
As soon as I entered the restaurant, Amy called out to me loudly. Hey, Amy, keep your voice down. Karen kept glancing around, repeatedly cautioning Amy. But Amy seemed completely unconcerned. Yes. I'm here now. Sitting beside Amy, she looked up at me with a big smile, but Karen's expression was very dark. When the food arrived, Amy ate eagerly, looking very pleased with the meal. People in the restaurant watched Amy with puzzled expressions. Karen seemed extremely bothered by the surrounding glances. Karen, it's no use worrying so much. You have to be confident. I whispered to Karen softly, so Amy couldn't hear. That's true. But... She immediately faltered, turning her face away. I couldn't say anything more either. The cause was the large burn scar on Amy's face. 6 months ago, the apartment where my son's family lived caught fire due to a household accident. On their way out, Amy got caught in the fire. Fortunately, she didn't suffer any life-threatening injuries, but the burn scars on her face were very painful to see. Despite already starting a new life with the help of fire insurance, the scars remained a constant source of worry. At present, Amy doesn't fully understand the implications of her facial scars, but as she grows older, they are bound to become a source of insecurity. For now, she has to undergo regular checkups to prevent infections. Everyone seems to be looking at me. Amy's words brought me back to reality. Yeah, maybe because you're so full of energy, they want to share it.
Really? That makes me happy.
With a joyful smile, Amy resumed eating her meal eagerly. Anyway, treatment is our top priority right now. Once you're fully healed, I'll help you find a doctor who can help reduce the scars, I assured her. Thank you. But there are other things to consider as well. Karen hesitated before saying so. Other things? What else is there? However, instead of answering, she shook her head weakly, prompting me to feel anxious and try to find out what was worrying her. At that moment, Amy shouted loudly, "Thanks for the meal," and accidentally dropped her plate to the ground. It was made of plastic, so it didn't break, but the liquid left on the floor splattered onto my shoes and feet. "Amy, what are you doing?" Karen exclaimed loudly, and the restaurant staff hurried over, looking concerned. Quickly grabbing a cloth, they wiped my feet and the floor. "You don't need to worry so much. I have spare shoes. But I'm really sorry." "Amy, you should apologize." "I'm sorry." Amy mumbled sadly, so I instinctively stroked her head. "It's okay. Let's eat together again sometime."
Yeah.
With that, the two of them bowed repeatedly and left the scene. After changing my shoes, I returned to work. At the end of my shift that day, I suddenly remembered Karen's words. I couldn't help but wonder what else was bothering her. It bothered me strangely. So, on my day off a few days later, I decided to visit my son's house unannounced with my husband, John. "Are you sure it's okay to go without an appointment? What if they're not home?" "If they're not, we'll deal with it then. Let's just head there for now." Okay. Following the navigation system, we parked the car at a nearby coin parking lot. Then, as we walked while looking at the map app, the weather deteriorated and it started to rain. Oh, I forgot to bring an umbrella. From here, it seems like the house is closer. Let's hurry. John and I quickened our pace to avoid getting wet. It was still drizzling, but there was a sense that it would intensify soon, as dark, heavy clouds loomed low overhead. As we turned the corner into the residential area, the house was already in sight. When I saw it, I suddenly noticed something strange on the roof of the second floor.
What's that?
What? What's wrong? Look, right under that window. Isn't that Amy? What? Oh, you're right. What's she doing there? We hurriedly ran and headed towards the roof. Underneath the window on the second floor, Amy was sitting upright on the sloped roof. Although the slope wasn't steep, it was raining, so it was a precarious situation where she could fall at any moment.
Amy! What are you doing there? It's dangerous, come down!
As I shouted loudly, Amy noticed me and smiled.
Hi, Grandma, Grandpa. Forget the greetings, just come down quickly.
But Daddy said if I sit here, my face will become beautiful. We didn't quite understand what Amy was saying.
You, go ring the doorbell right away. I'll stay here and watch. Got it.
Heath immediately headed to the front door, and in the meantime, I kept my eyes on Amy. In the drizzling rain, Amy sat smilingly on the roof in Siza position. Then, just as the house started to get noisy, my son Heath appeared at the window. Oh, you're right. It's raining. Well, then, it's pointless. Amy, come back.
Got it.
With that, Amy stood up slowly and went back inside through the window. As I stood there clueless about what just happened, I suddenly noticed Karen standing still at the entrance. If you were coming, you could have gone to them. Anyway, please come inside. Karen seemed to be preoccupied with everything around her. When I entered the house, I saw John standing with his arms crossed, looking troubled.
Karen, what was that about earlier? How could you let something so dangerous happen? Are you okay with this?
I immediately confronted Karen as soon as I entered the living room. I couldn't forgive her for letting our daughter do something so risky while being concerned about what others might think. Karen grimaced painfully. I'm sorry. Heath just really wants to get rid of the bruise.
Getting rid of the bruise? Is that what that was about? I can't believe he thinks it'll disappear like that.
I understand that too. But Heath insists on trying anything he can. Both John and I were having trouble grasping the situation and exchanged glances. I understand the desire to get rid of the bruise, but I can't comprehend why he would do something like that. As we stood there dumbfounded, Heath came downstairs with heavy footsteps. Hey, Dad. Mom. Thanks. It doesn't mean anything without the sun shining. Wait, Heath. Why did you do something like that? It's obvious, isn't it? To get rid of the bruise. Don't you know? Sunlight is said to have healing powers.
Hey, Heath. What are you talking about? There's no way that's true.
Nah, Dad, you're just old-fashioned and don't understand. I'm sure Amy's bruise will heal. Oops, I have a briefing to attend now. I need to go. Heath blurted out such nonsensical things while running around the house, changed into a suit, and brought a large bag. Wait, Heath. Where are you going? Where else? I'm going to attend a briefing about medicine to fix Amy's bruise. If it's good, I need to buy it right away before it runs out. Heath rushed out of the house energetically. Left behind, we couldn't make heads or tails of what just happened and remained frozen in place. However, Karen was the only one crying, covering her face with her hands and sobbing quietly. It's been like this for so long. Since Amy got that bruise on her face, I just don't know what to do anymore, Karen confessed. Revealing the truth she had been holding back. I was taken aback, never expecting Heath to be behind such nonsensical statements. So, Heath has been making Amy do such things all along? Yes.
Why don't you stop him? If he keeps doing things like that, there could be a serious accident someday.
But he doesn't listen to anything I say. His behavior is truly monstrous, and I'm afraid. If I try to stop him, I don't know what he'll do to me, so I... Karen broke down in tears as she spoke. At that moment, Amy descended from upstairs, looking sleepy. Mom, what's wrong? Oh, Amy, you're coming down. I hurried over to Amy. Her clothes were damp from the rain, so I turned to John. I'll change her and put her to bed. Could you please assist Karen? Where are the clothes? Karen pointed to the dresser with one hand covering her face. Inside, I found some clothes, so I dried Amy's body in the bathroom and changed her clothes. Then, I took her upstairs and put her to bed. Amy soon started to breathe deeply and fell asleep peacefully, so I went back downstairs. When I returned to the first floor, Karen had already calmed down and was sitting on the sofa, looking composed. Is Amy all right now? Yes. I put her to sleep soundly, so I don't think she'll wake up for a while. I'm really sorry. I'm not holding up well. Karen apologized to us, looking remorseful. Her cheeks seemed even more sunken than before. And her hair was disheveled, reflecting the hardships she was going through. No, you don't need to apologize. Yeah, that's right. Despite being married now, Heath is still our child. His responsibility is our responsibility too. I nodded in agreement with John's words. We still hadn't heard the reason behind Heath's actions. Karen, please tell us everything that happened. All right. Karen licked her lips, straightened up, and began to explain the whole story. It all started with that fire. Actually, I hadn't told you before, but Heath was the cause of that fire.
What?
Karen's words caught me off guard, and I couldn't help but let out a loud exclamation. I distinctly remembered hearing that the fire was suspected arson in a different location. That's what Heath told me to explain. Of course, the police know everything. But it wasn't widely reported in the media. I see. So why did Heath end up causing such a foolish fire? It was a day with weather similar to today's. It was sunny in the morning, but suddenly it started raining. At that time, I happened to be out of the house. And what happened then? Startled by the rain, Heath hurriedly brought the laundry hangers inside to prevent them from getting wet and hung them up in the room. Unfortunately, they ended up touching the electric heater. I see, so the fire started from the laundry. Yes, and at that moment, Heath was working from home and was in a remote meeting. When he noticed the fire, he quickly left the room and returned to the room where the computer was. So, the discovery was delayed. When I opened the door, there was already a lot of smoke. I tried to extinguish the fire in a hurry, but it was no use. Fortunately, there were no other injuries, but Amy's face. Karen's voice trailed off as tears welled up in her eyes. I didn't know what to say, so I simply gently rubbed her back in comfort. It seemed that even my husband, John, felt the same as he closed his eyes and remained silent, arms crossed. The rain outside grew stronger, with the sound of heavy downpour echoing in the room. To break the awkward silence, I directed a question at Karen. We understand the cause of the fire, but how does that relate to Heath? Heath feels extreme guilt for what happened because of him. But that guilt has taken a strange direction. A strange direction? Karen suddenly stood up and went to another room. After rummaging for a while, she returned holding something in her hands. Placing it on the table, I observed a diverse array of items. There were bottles of suspicious-looking water with strange drawings, a golden cream tin with Sanskrit inscriptions, bracelets made of various colored stones, and a golden steamer. They all seemed expensive and frankly, they looked like nothing but scam products. Karen, what are these exactly? Heath just wants to get rid of the bruise on Amy's face desperately. But we couldn't find any good doctors. So, he started researching on his own. It seems like a pretty dubious way of researching, though. Karen nodded in agreement with Heath's words. At this point, I could somewhat anticipate what she would say next. He started going to various businesses based on internet and word-of-mouth recommendations. Then, he began trying out whatever they suggested. So, he ended up buying all of these? Yes. Despite everything being incredibly expensive, Heath kept buying more and more, leaving us with no money. Yet, whenever he got his paycheck, he would spend it all on these products. But surely, you tried to stop him, didn't you? Of course. But whenever I brought it up, he would yell at me, asking if I didn't feel sorry for Amy. And eventually, it escalated to violence. Karen rolled up her shirt sleeve, revealing bruised skin marked with dark blue patches. It's terrible. How could this happen? I felt as if I were being subjected to violence myself. I never imagined things would turn out like this. Spending money recklessly was one thing, but resorting to violence was unforgivable. Absolutely disgraceful, even for my own son. Including letting him sit on the roof earlier. He's doing it to fix the bruise. He believes that by applying that cream and exposing himself to sunlight as much as possible, the sunlight will stimulate skin regeneration. I heard those words and couldn't help but feel like banging my head against the wall. As a pharmacist, I immediately recognized it as baseless nonsense. If things have gotten to the point where even I can't understand, then Heath's actions from now on are anyone's guess. I understand everything now. While Heath is certainly responsible for his actions, it's still heartbreaking as parents. We need to do something about this. In that case, what will happen to Heath? Well, he'll need to be isolated for a while. I believe he'll be fine with proper treatment. And we need to find a doctor who can remove the bruise. I'll handle that part since I'm familiar with it. I'll make sure Heath is isolated. Upon hearing those words, Karen burst into tears again, covering her face. Thank you so much. I couldn't do anything on my own anymore. But I couldn't even consult anyone. I gave Karen's back a light pat, and then exchanged a small nod with my husband. Whatever happens next, there will likely be conflicts with Heath. He might even get injured. But we must be prepared to endure some hardships to save our son. And ultimately, it will also lead to saving Amy. As I silently made up my mind, Heath returned home. Karen's expression immediately turned anxious as soon as she looked up. I'm back. Man, it's pouring out there. Can't use the meds without the sun, you know. Karen, I'm gonna pray for this rain to stop right now.
What should we do? What should we do?
Karen's all flustered on the couch, so I catch eyes with Heath and get up. Just then, the living room door creaks open and in walks Heath. His suit is drenched, water dripping from his bag onto the floor. At first, I didn't notice, but now it's clear as day that something's off with Heath. His eyes are wide open, darting around, bloodshot and half-open lips turned purple, dried blood smeared on them. Heath looks at us and moves his head wildly. Oh, you guys are still here. Perfect timing. Just bought some great medicine. Let's all try it together. Mom, this stuff prevents blemishes. He pulls out a bunch of unfamiliar drugs from his bag and lines them up on the table. Hold on a sec. You're curious, right? I thought so. I'll teach you how to use it right now, so pay attention. Karen, you can use it too.
I told you to shut up. It's pathetic to get caught up in this nonsense.
Heath froze in place and glared daggers at Heath.
Pathetic, pathetic, pathetic. Are you denying my love? Trampling on my feelings? You're not my parent. Who are you? Reveal yourself. Heath, please stop this.
Karen couldn't take it anymore and confronted Heath. But he seemed oblivious to her presence, staring blankly into the distance.
I see, I get it now. Karen, Mom, Dad, you're all fakes. But I won't lose. I'm the only one who can erase Amy's bruise.
Muttering to himself, Heath began searching his pockets. Then, he pulled out a gleaming golden knife and brandished it.
Come on, show your true colors. And set everyone free right now. If you won't listen, then I'll do it like this.
With a shout, Heath swung the knife towards Karen. Just in time, Karen's legs gave out and she crouched down, narrowly avoiding the knife.
Heath, stop it!
I tried to shield her and tackled Heath. Taking advantage of his stumble, Heath was pulled away from Karen by John.
Don't get in my way. You imposter!
Heath swung the knife frantically. Though I managed to avoid getting hit near the face, the tip of the knife grazed my hand, and blood spurted out.
Ouch!
For the first time in my life, I felt pain, and my body froze instinctively. With saliva flying from his mouth, Heath lunged at me with the knife. In that moment, time seemed to slow down, and memories flooded into my mind. The day I married John, the day Heath was born, the day Amy was born. They appeared and vanished and reappeared. This must be what they call a flashback. So, this is the end of my life. Preparing myself for the end of my life, I resolved to at least witness everything until the end, staring down the tip of the knife. But just before the knife could pierce me, Heath's face was met with a powerful punch from John.
Ugh!
Heath was sent flying backward, crashing into the door and dropping the knife. However, he quickly changed his posture and tried to confront Heath, but another punch from Heath struck his abdomen.
You bastard! You! How dare you do something like that to your own mother? A disrespectful son like you needs to cool your head.
John grabbed Heath's collar and shoulder tightly, then forcefully threw him towards the cupboard. His body flew through the air and collided with the cupboard upside down, making a tremendous noise. His body sunk into the cupboard and then fell headfirst onto the floor. As if adding insult to injury, books and appliances from the cupboard fell down onto his sprawled body. Since John takes part in martial arts as a hobby, he's quite strong when he fights seriously. Heath couldn't endure this damage and lost consciousness, his eyes rolling back. I grew concerned and checked his pulse. He's okay. He's still alive. More worried about your hands than Heath. Karen, do we have a first aid kit? Oh, yes, we do. I'll bring it right away. Karen, though flustered, quickly brought the first aid kit. As I tended to the wounds, from upstairs, Amy asked, Mom, what's going on? So Karen hurried to her. John tightly bound Heath's hands with the zip ties from the kitchen. That should do it. How about you? I'm fine. The wounds aren't too deep. But I'll call the hospital now. They have a psychiatric department, so I'll explain the situation and have him admitted. That sounds good. I'll leave it to you. I immediately called the hospital and explained Heath's outburst and the events leading up to it. Fortunately, the doctor was understanding and quickly arranged for an ambulance. When the ambulance arrived, they securely restrained Heath and I accompanied him to the hospital for treatment. Karen stayed behind to take care of Amy. After finishing tidying up the room, John also headed to the hospital. As I rode in the ambulance, I couldn't help but stare at Heath's face. Seeing him like this, it felt like nothing had changed since the old days. It was quite a disaster, wasn't it? But you'll be okay now. Thank you. The kind words from the paramedic put me at ease. With the strong and capable paramedics around, I felt reassured that even if Heath were to act up, they could handle it somehow. Feeling relieved, I was suddenly overwhelmed with exhaustion, so I drifted off to sleep in the ambulance. Later, Heath was admitted to the psychiatric ward. I made sure to get permission to visit him whenever I could, and his condition seemed to be improving. The attending doctor reassured me that his condition wasn't severe and that with time, he would fully recover. This brought me some relief. I also inquired with other doctors if there was anyone who could remove the bruise, but it seemed difficult to find someone suitable. However, I didn't give up and continued searching. Several months later, a renowned doctor who usually practices abroad happened to be staying in this area for a while. We arranged for treatment with that doctor. And thanks to that, the bruise on Amy's face became barely noticeable. It was said that as she grew, it would become completely invisible. By that time, Heath had improved significantly, but it seemed like the guilt still lingered. So, when we showed him Amy's healed face, he burst into tears and hugged her tightly. From that moment on, Heath's mental state improved rapidly, and he was discharged from the hospital safely. Mom, Dad, Karen, Amy, I'm truly sorry. I caused so much trouble because of myself. I'm really sorry. Heath repeatedly apologized to us. No one blamed Heath anymore.
It's okay. It was all just a bad dream. That's right. We've returned to how we were.
Seriously, I was worried for a while there.
Let's have dinner together, Dad. Thank you so much.
We decided to have our meal at that restaurant in the hospital. No one stares at Amy's face anymore. Everyone spent a pleasant mealtime with smiles on their faces. As Heath was discharged, John began preparing to sue all the fraudulent businessmen. He worked with Heath to gather evidence and recruited other victims to hire a lawyer. The trial dragged on, but when this incident was covered on TV, the authorities took action. And finally, we won the lawsuit, and we were able to obtain compensation from all the businessmen. All the cases were resolved, and we returned to our original lives. Though busy days continued as usual, it felt even more fulfilling than before. And today is the last day for Amy's examination. As I glanced at the clock, the lunch break chime rang.
Grandma, let's eat.
From the other side, Karen and Amy walked towards us with beaming smiles.
Okay, just wait a moment. I said so and finished changing before heading towards them.